Hey everyone, this is Katie Sweetman with another live look at the astrology. It's January 11th through 17th, 2021. So yeah, it's another week. We are further into January. Thank you all for joining me again and again, week after week. I really appreciate your comments, your feedback, your watching. I know you all are all different places around the world. So do pop in, say hi, tell me where you're watching from. As I've been saying throughout the last 10 months, I can't travel, so I have to travel through you. So again, my name is Katie Sweetman. I'm an astrologer and psychic medium here in Brooklyn, New York, and I've been working under the name of Empowering Astrology since January. Wow, wait, I think I had a birthday last week. January 8th of 2010 or January 9th, 2010 is when I started Empowering Astrology. And I started Empowering Astrology because at the time, although the astrological community and like the stuff that's out there was like radically shifted, there wasn't anything that I felt kind of expressed my voice or my views on astrology. And really at the root of Empowering Astrology, and I know this from personal experience, is how do we use difficult astrology to open, to transform, to make ourselves better, to make our lives better. Because I remember being a teenager and looking at my chart in the library, because this was before the internet, and I would read about my chart, and I have Mars square Saturn in my chart. I have Mercury square Saturn in my chart. I had a very wide opposition between the moon and Neptune. And you would read about these aspects, and the books would say awful things. And I'm like, this can't be my life. So it's not to say that difficult astrology doesn't exist, but what I've learned and what I try to share with you all week after week is like, how do we bring ourselves to this astrology? How do we bring consciousness and awareness and self-awareness to this astrology so something can grow and shift? And I got this question today, Katie, what do you do during these times? And when everything started to shift 10 months ago with the pandemic, like I had to double down on my personal health and wellness, meditation, energy work, like every day. It's like I have to create these personal rituals. I have to clean, I have to reflect, I have to notice my body. And that's the thing. And I think that's even a theme that's in the astrology this week. Like, where is our body in all of this? Because if there's difficult energy in the sky, as above, so below, that energy is registering somewhere inside of us. We might have, something hurt in our foot or whatever. And how does that help us to bring awareness to something that's in friction or in conflict? So, like I said, and something I've been saying week after week, there's the astrology, which is 50%, but you are the other 50%. Like I've seen this over and over again. Like the universe can sort of line up kind of give us some easy astrology and the things just kind of pass us by. Or the hands on the clock might be pointing towards something that we really do want in our heart, but everything kind of passes us by. So I want you all to be open to the highest potential of these times. I know it's not easy, and I know you're like, well, Katie, when does it get better? When does things kind of quiet down? And this is the thing, we're just going to keep having these weeks where things get very intense, which is this week, January 11th through 17th, 2021. This week we have a Capricorn New Moon, which is pretty, newsworthy in and of itself, but this is a Capricorn New Moon that's, we would say in astrology, conjunct Pluto. It's in the same place in the sky as Pluto, if we could see Pluto. And that means that the coming lunar month will be lived through the energies of Capricorn, which is work and achievement and responsibilities and structure and boundaries and sort of bringing things back into order. It's no coincidence that this is the time of the year where we set resolutions for ourselves, set goals for ourselves, because we're living the astrology right now through Capricorn, through Saturn. Saturn is the planet that's like, all right, this is either working or it's not working, but something has to change. So this week, we're kind of doing those. It's the new year. Like, where is this all going? What do I want to achieve? What do I need to like kind of clean out and get organized? But then throw some Pluto onto it. And so that means that we really have to do some really deep spiritual work this week. Not to get too far ahead of myself, but then also we'll say that there are some other things going on this week. We have Mars square Saturn, which I have natally, so I live it every day. It's nothing to kind of, lose sleep over, but in traditional astrology, Mars and Saturn are what are called malefics, meaning they're not the planets that are helping us out. They usually make things happen. They usually cause conflict, but you can work with Mars square Saturn. Like I said, I know from personal experience. We also have a week where Mercury is making some pretty bumpy astrology. Now it's in Aquarius, so it's meeting up with Saturn, it's meeting up with Jupiter, it's squaring off Uranus. And then, speaking of Uranus, the day after the new moon on January 13th, Uranus turns direct at 6 degrees of Capricorn. So we have these two stories happening this week. We have a story that started in 2018, 2019, that's sort of coming to another head, another chapter, another thread. Then we have this other story that began in 2008, and I know you all hear me talk about 2008, and yeah, there's a story that began then that's even still now, 13 years later, running through the astrology. Later this week, Jupiter squares Uranus. Jupiter, the planet of faith and truth and meaning, beliefs, if I didn't say that already. Jupiter's law, and it's sort of coming up against Uranus. So Jupiter and Uranus, their cycle usually speaks to some sort of awakening, breakthrough, technological advances. For example, when Jupiter was conjunct Uranus in Libra, I think it was in the summer of 1969, we had the moon landing. And there's been other subsequent, I think even when first flight here in the United States at Kitty Hawk with the Wright brothers, that was Jupiter conjunct Uranus. So there is this energy of awakenings and new insight and new transformation, maybe even the seeds of scientific and technological breakthroughs that we may not see until later. So there's a lot that's jam-packed in 1 week. Let's try to break it down. Let's start with Mercury. So Monday, January 11th, as I record this, Mercury is in Aquarius. It's been in Aquarius since last week, January 8th. Mercury is the planet of communication, ideas, information, thoughts, movement, and travel. In Aquarius, Aquarius is an air sign. So it's sort of in a sign that it kind of has a lot of affinity with. It gets to move. And mind you, Aquarius is what's called Saturn ruled. Aquarius is about ideas, but ideas that get codified into books and to ideology and theology and politics and stuff that happens on a world level. Aquarius is community, it's collective, it's humanity, it's society. So right now Mercury is kind of talking about some big ideas, stuff that connects to all of us because we are all human beings on this planet. And so when Mercury now is moving through this part of the sky, it's meeting up with Saturn, or did this past weekend. We had some serious decisions to make. We're kind of trying to create new systems, Aquarius systems and networks and technology and science. We're trying to create new systems for our lives. A lot of things have to shift this year. And I know that I seem to say that a lot. And when I was making the comment on the Facebook page, sorry, I sound like an old person, on the Facebook page. When I made a comment on Facebook about, what do I do? And, I sort of said that everything is changing. I don't need to tell you that. You just need to look on the news. You need to look out into the world to know that we are living through extraordinary times. We are in a time of humanity where everything has to shift. Now, think back, let's say 2012, everybody said, spiritual awakenings, end of the world, start of the new golden age. That obviously didn't happen, but maybe something did shift in 2012, and maybe we did arrive in a time where, in order to become better human beings, in order to become a better humanity, a lot of things we have to look at. We have to see what's in the way, and I think that is a thread that's in the astrology this week. So, what I said, it's gonna keep getting more intense until something awakens within us, something shifts, something transforms. So these are the type of weeks, even though I'm sharing information about some potentially intense astrology, I want you all to feel empowered, hopefully, to do personal work, to use this energy for your own growth and transformation. And we can maybe talk about some practical things towards the end. What would that look like? So like I said, Mercury's in Aquarius, big ideas, systems, networks. We got to do things differently. We have to organize and structure our day perhaps a little differently. Mercury meets up with Uranus, making a square tomorrow on January 12th. So there might be some information and ideas that confront us, that shake us up, that make us have to see things differently. So pay attention to the conversations that you're having, pay attention to the thoughts you're having, because they might, give you a little bit of a light bulb, for example. But the real big news this week is Capricorn New Moon, which I started to talk about a few moments ago. New moons, new beginnings, new lunar month. That's how it works. Every month we have a new moon. Sometimes we have 2 new moons in a month, but typically it's just one. And so it's just another page that turns in our zodiac calendar. We're in Capricorn season, but now we have a Capricorn new moon that says over the next 4 weeks, as I said before, over the next 4 weeks, we are living life through the archetype of Capricorn. Capricorn is the last earth sign. We're, by the way, getting to the end of the zodiac at this time of year. We're sort of running out on the end of the zodiac year. We get to Capricorn. Capricorn is the last earth sign. We previously were in Sagittarius season. We were at the last fire sign. So Capricorn represents mastery over the material world. It's power, it's money, it's achievement. And of course, these, you can do this for both sides. You can do that in a way that uplifts, of course, or you can do this in a very negative, like money over everything, there's no spirituality kind of a thing, that sort of negative Capricorn facet. But how do we create structures in our life that support our goals, that support healthy living, that support harmony and balance? So this is sort of this Capricorn time where we get to the new year, we all sort of scratch our heads and we're like, all right, how do I make my life better? Do I need to change my work? Do I need to clean out my home? Do I need to change my diet or whatever? But I think at the heart of Saturn, or at the heart of Capricorn and its positive expression, is to create a life that is in order and in balance. And we get to this time of the year and we're suddenly realizing just what is not in order and not in balance. And it's not a judgment. It's just we have to create harmony at this time. So that may mean some changes in how we take care of ourselves, changes in our work, for example. So that's the Capricorn new moon, but then, like I said, it has these other things going on with it. So we know that because the Capricorn moon is in the same place in the sky as Pluto, that the next 4 weeks are going to be intense. Pluto is an intense planet. Pluto is about, dare I say, death, the D word, and rebirth. It's the lord of the underworld in its mythology. So Pluto, look at Pluto like a plumber. Pluto is the planet that sort of reaches into the spiritual pipes, whether it's personally or collectively, and it shows us what's there. Maybe we want relationship, for example, but deep in our heart of hearts, we're terrified. We're terrified of intimacy, connection, vulnerability, opening us up. So Pluto's like, here, let me help. Let me show you what's in the way. And I think that we have to see this new moon in its connection to something that began in 2008. So go back to 2008. I know some of you who've been listening to me, you've maybe done this in your own time already. Go back to 2008. Go back to January of 2008. That was the month that Pluto, let's say, walked in to Capricorn. Pluto had not been in Capricorn for 250 years. I know you all are not been alive, we're alive that long. So Pluto's in the part of the sky that it hasn't been in 250 years. And Pluto walks into Capricorn, sign of manifestation, power, government, boundaries, structures. And Pluto says, all right, we have to look at what is happening in this realm of life that's not working. What's in the pipes? How do we tear down old structures, old power structures that aren't working anymore? You might be thinking, Katie, I'm not a Capricorn. I know, or I don't know, I assume. But Capricorn is somewhere in your chart because you're not just your sun sign, you are all 12 signs of the zodiac. So Capricorn represents some place in your chart. And it could be your money part of your chart. It could be your relationship part of your chart. For example, if you're a Cancer, it could be your career. It could be your health. So Pluto walks into this room that's very symbolic of a particular area of your life. And Pluto says, I'm going to start ripping everything out. Like I said, Pluto is like a plumber. Pluto's like demolition crew. So I think I put it in the show notes. I wrote an article, Pluto and Capricorn, sign by sign. It's not a very, fleshed out article, but at least gives you a starting point for what part of your life 13 years ago started to get ripped out. Here's the thing. Even after 13 years, it is still being ripped out. You've got 3 more years left. Pluto will be in Capricorn 2023, 2024. So some part of your life, money, career, relationships, spirituality, looks very different than it did 13 years ago. It will look very different 16, after 3 years from now, when we hit the end of Pluto and Capricorn. Pluto has been reaching in and removing what's in the way. What is this kind of deep stuff on a soul level? It could be karmic, it could be past life, it could be stuff from this life. And if it is not helping you, if it is in the way of life flowing in your life, it has to go. So look back and you may wow, my career or my whatever looks very different. So here comes, let's go back to 2018. That was the year that Saturn walked into the room with Pluto. 2018, 2019, 2020. And Saturn sort of says to all of us, this work that you've been doing or not doing, and now it has to come together. So that's why I think that 2020 just was a very different year for some people, because I think we all had to sort of get to a certain place. And so 2020 wasn't easy, but Saturn's left Capricorn, but Pluto remains. And here we are, it's the week of January 11th through 17th. And on January 13th, the new moon conjuncts Pluto. So some story, like a thread, comes forward. So I'll just quickly go around the zodiac so you can sort of see what part of your life is having this new moon. So if you're an Aries, it's career. This whole 13-year story arc has been unfolding in your professional life. How your ambitions, the title that's after your name, the direction that your life is in, the responsibilities and duties that you carry. And maybe when you look back, your professional life is radically different. Maybe you had to leave a career because it died on you in a way, and now you've had to create something very new. I often say, especially with Pluto can talk about power and control. If you're not being the power in your professional life, somebody will be the power for you. So this is a friendly reminder from the sky for you to be the power in your professional life and not have it, somebody trying to take that power from you. But this is a new moon that's happening in your career sign. So this is typically a time when it's about new things happening in your professional life, new career changes, new promotions or job changes or changes in responsibilities. Add that with Pluto. So there's something in your own time, Aries, just to go back and look. And listen, side note, which I didn't mention because there's just so much going on this week. Mars is square Saturn, so it just sort of amps up the intensity. So I think with Aries, because you are what's called Mars ruled, you got to get your stuff together. This is a new year, and it sort of takes on more weight for you, Aries. And if something is out of order, out of balance, out of alignment, out of integrity, it all has to come It has to come back. Taurus. So this new moon is happening in the part of your chart that talks about your faith, your truth, your meaning, how you see the world, how you see yourself in the world. In another time it would have been travel, it could be higher education. So you go back and you might look at the person you were 13 years ago, and you might be completely different in the way that you see yourself, you see the world, you express yourself in the world. So this new moon is sort of, it's asking you, what do you believe in? Because Pluto has been removing a lot of blocks, at least that's the idea, from what you believe in. And this does include, even if you have very negative beliefs about yourself or very negative beliefs about what's possible in your world or the world in general. So Pluto is just trying to open up space so that you can, look out into the world and open up your eyes. This is a part of a chart that talks about education as well. So you might need new perspectives, new educations. You might need to look at and examine your beliefs and how your beliefs may or may not get in your way. Gemini. So this part of your chart, in a way, this touches back on some really difficult astrology the past few years that you have just come out of, Gemini. The last 13 years, if not the last 3 years in particular, you had to do a lot of profound and deep psychic transformation, a lot of work around intimacy and vulnerability and opening up and letting go. At least that was the idea. So this new moon gives you a sort of reset, and a reset that talks about emotional health, psychic health, the psyche, and maybe having to do, work with a counselor or somebody who can guide you through this kind of deeper personal underworld. We all have an underworld. I'm not just singling out Gemini, but this new moon really sort of gets to the heart of what has been deep in you, even during this whole 13-year process. So look what comes up, examine your feelings, be present with yourself. Do not try to escape. Not, in the best possible way, so that you can really face yourself and face what's at the heart of a lot of the work that you've been doing since 2008. Cancer. So this is relationships for you, and relationships have been an area that you've had to do a lot of work on the past 13 years, and opening up to connecting with people, and you've had Pluto in this part of your chart for so long, and you've had to really do a lot of profound work with relationships. And when you look back, maybe you know exactly what I'm talking about. The people that have come into your life, the people who have, maybe there have been power issues, maybe the people who have acted like Pluto in your life, maybe have shown you the darkness within, maybe have shined a light or held up a mirror to you in some way. And maybe this is a time when you've had to find your power in relationships. So this new moon is on the surface of things, a time where it's about new beginnings in relationships, new people coming into your life, maybe a serious relationship if that's relevant to you, or a new chapter in an existing relationship. But do not lose sight that this is part of a much bigger story, one where you've had to find your power, or if you've had to find you've had to really profoundly, psychically, emotionally, spiritually evolve how you connect to other people. And meanwhile, because Saturn is in Aquarius for you, Cancer, you're already doing a lot of profound emotional work right now. So just kind of keep it going. Leo. So this part of your chart, this new moon is falling, is about how you take care of yourself. It's work, it's projects, it's organization, it's sort of that kind of day-to-day minutia. It's also health and wellness. And when you look back to where you were, say, at the beginning of 2008, maybe you see a profound shift and transformation in how you take care of yourself. Maybe there have been big changes in diet, big change, maybe you cut out certain things in order to be kind of healthier. Maybe you're doing exercise in a way that you never or even ever did before. But the idea is that, especially over the last few years, you had to really work to take care of yourself more, get your life organized, get your physical wellness organized. And so here comes Saturn, and it's not Saturn, Saturn on the brain. Here comes Capricorn. So this new moon is saying, okay, what are our new goals? What are our new resolutions? What are the things that we have not been addressing, even after all this heavy lifting the past few years? So it's kind of this very, physical reset. Whatever sort of healthy changes that you need to make. With Pluto, there is a sense of like really cutting, maybe some negative connections. So for example, addictions. Maybe there's something that you're addicted to. It could be sugar, it could be alcohol, it could be, other things, other substances. And use Pluto to really face why there is this connection in the first place so that you can transform it and have a very different 2021. Virgo. So this part of your chart is looking at self, but not self in a very rudimentary level. It's self in how you really express who you are. It's the this self, pointing to my chest. It's the part of us where we really reveal and shine and express who we are. This is the area of the chart that talks about creativity, talent, self-expression, persona, identity. So this new moon is really awakening you, but also making you look at you, thanks to Pluto, where you are getting in the way of you. That's a lot of you in one sentence. So we all get in our way. We all want to hide who we really are. It's hard. It's vulnerable. The world's scary. Stuff happened to us when we were kids, but all that stuff wraps around that essence of who you are, that spark within, spark the divine within. So how do you use this new moon to really open yourself up, to open your talents up, to share yourself, and share yourself in a way that you've never shared yourself, but also looking at where you have just been self-sabotaging. So sorry, Virgo. But nevertheless, there you go. Libra. So this new moon is falling at what's called the bottom of your chart. It's home, it's family, it's roots, and its foundation. So this typically would be a new moon where it's about changing the home. It could be a move. It could be, kind of getting new stuff, new furniture, but this need to create a sense of home and roots, a nest and stability in your life. But here comes Pluto. So it's important to see this new moon within this context of a 13-year story. Where is home? Who is home? How has home and family shifted profoundly in the last 13 years? So you might be making very mundane changes in your home this month, or maybe not mundane changes, but like I said, you can't lose sight of this bigger, more profound story that you've been looking at. And if everything you're doing, for example, is to create a home that is unconsciously based on instability, because you grew up in instability, how does this Pluto energy help you to truly face what is at the root, or what the rot at the, I know it's kind of a strong thing to say, but Pluto shows us the rot. Pluto shows us what's in the way, and it's time to purge, it's time to let things go, and it's time to really, and Pluto does draw this line, so to speak. It's like, once we cross this line, we can't go back. And so maybe there's stuff from the past that just simply, as you go into 2021, after everything that we've been through, just simply needs to be in the past. So it's just time to let it go, Libra. But you may be making some changes in your home. There may be a move, for example. Not Libra, Scorpio. So Scorpio, this is about voice, communication, how you speak, how you learn, how you listen, how you move, travel, education. So Scorpio, you were doing a lot of profound work on your voice, being heard, and people listening to you over the last 13 years. The example that I've used in previous times that we've spoken, I am Scorpio. Now, There's a reason I wasn't doing video work 10 years ago, 11 years ago when I first started empowering astrology, because you wouldn't have been able to hear me. I would have, my voice, see, I'm doing it right now. So it's been a really intense work. For example, and I'm sure my mom is watching the replay, she would agree. Like when I had a speech impediment as a kid, I would speak and like tumble over my words. I would stammer, I'd stutter a little bit. Mercury square Saturn. But it's been a work to really find my voice. Now, it's a personal example. And if you're a Scorpio, maybe you have your own examples. How do you find the power of what you have to say right now? Because to be fair, Scorpio keeps it close to the vest. That's just how we do. But you have this 13-year story that really amped up the last 3 years, where you had to really find the power, the integrity, the authority of what you have to say. Here I am every week in front of absolute strangers. Some of you aren't, some of you are my clients, some of you are friends, and talk out into the world. And people now ask me my opinion on things, which is kind of weird because I'm just a regular person who just happens to know a lot about astrology. But here I am, like I'm sharing what I know. So here's a very personal example for Scorpio. And also I will say this is a time that's also about making some serious decisions, because this is a part of the chart where you weigh your options. Sagittarius. So this part of your astrological chart is about money. So think back, 2008. What was your money story at the start of 2008? Pluto walked in, and Pluto really started to rip things out around money, material need, value and worth. So this is the part of your chart that talks about material stability, roof over your head, money in the bank, food in the kitchen, the basics. And Pluto has profoundly transformed your relationship with value and worth in the material world over the last 13 years, if not the last 3, when Saturn was there, 2018 to 2019. So what sort of money story or thread do you see when you look back? Have you created wealth? Have you lost wealth? Have you gotten your material life in order? Is everything tip-top? Is everything not tip-top? Are you building a life that's based on value where you don't think you're of value? For example, that has to go. Pluto is trying to show you what is in the way, what has to transform. For example, Capricorn. Boy, oh boy, Capricorn. Capricorn, go back to 2008. Probably something is very different when you go back to 2008. Pluto walked into Capricorn in January 2008, walked out, I think, in April, walked back at the end of November of 2008, where it's been, 13 years. So you are Capricorn. There's something that might be very structurally and profoundly different than it was 13 years ago. Depending on when in Capricorn you were born, you already went through what's called the Pluto transit, the Pluto conjunction, 10 years ago, 5 years ago. But if you're born in the latter parts of Capricorn, so if you're born around January 15th, January 16th, January 17th, January 18th, like you're going through it or on the cusp of it, where Pluto is walking up to you and saying, now I'm ready for you. Meaning, you have to transform, and it's not an easy process. And if you are what's called an early Capricorn, meaning you were born end of December going into the beginning of January, you already know this process. You are fundamentally ground up spiritually, this is the idea, transformed. You have to understand that Pluto, as I said earlier, only comes to this part of the sky every 250 years. So this is an area of our life that if you look at this from a soul perspective, we're not going to have this chance again in this lifetime to do this work. This is why it's now time to do this transformation work, because there's no other time when Pluto will be back in this part of the sky. We would have to come back and reincarnate another 250 years from now. We'll have different karma, we'll have different lives, we'll all be robots by then, just kidding. So anyway, What needs to change, Capricorn? What have you been resisting and fighting? What is at the deep, dark part of you that just needs to let go? Some food for thought. But if you are born on the 13th, 14th, 15th, maybe the 12th, maybe the 11th, it's a coming year. It's going to be a very big personal shift for you. Brand new year. Aquarius. So this part of your chart, it's a little bit behind the scenes. It talks about spirituality. It talks about your relationship with what exists beyond this world. It talks about the search for inner truth and meaning. So this might be not as obvious when you look back compared to some of the other signs, because it's happening on a very quiet, invisible, very spiritual level. Pluto comes in January of 2008, and a deep part of you, a very unconscious part of you, a very spiritual part of you has to now shift. Maybe Aquarius, you look back and you see a profound existential shift over the last 13 years. Maybe you were like, yep, I'm not psychic, I'm not intuitive. And then Pluto comes in, like the plumber, cleans out the pipes, and suddenly you're you're a lot more intuitive than you realize. It was always there, but there had to be some sort of profound shift and transformation and able to work it in order to connect. Now, Saturn was in this area 2018, 2019, 2020. So you were really in this time to do this deep, unconscious, spiritual, existential work. So this sort of echoes back to a lot of this invisible internal work that you've been doing. So like I said, sit with that, see how that feels, Aquarius. Don't worry, you got other things going on in your chart. This just is happening on a level that's a little bit quiet for you. Lastly, Pisces. So Pisces, this is about friends, community, connection, the people that are in your life, the networks that you are a part of, society, humanity. You have been doing this really profound work of connection, social connection, since 2008. Now here comes Saturn in 2018, 2019, 2020. And Saturn did say to you at the time, who are your friends? What sort of connections do you have? Are these people truly your friends? What are your friendships built on? What are your alliances built on? What are your community built on? When Saturn is in this part of the chart, it can be a little lonely because Saturn can get a bit brutal about who are your friends and who are not your friends. So maybe when you look back, you see a social network as it was, say, 13 years ago or even 3 years ago, that is very different than what it is now. I think at the heart of this time is that, Pisces, sometimes you want to be everybody's friend or want to take care of everybody. There's, that sense of like, oh, it's everybody. But Saturn is trying to get you really, or was at least until 2020, very sharp, very specific, very clear about who your friends and who are not your friends, to have it be healthy. That's all. It's not to take people away out of your life for the sake of taking people away out of your life. But if there were unhealthy boundaries, if there was unhealthy connection, toxic relationships, toxic community, toxic groups, here comes Pluto with the conjunction with this new moon. And now you really have to look at, well, what was at the heart of it all? So that's your look at this Capricorn New Moon. It's going to be on January 13th at 12 a.m. Eastern at 23 degrees of Capricorn, the same day that Mars squares Saturn. So it's really pushing at things. It's really bringing things up for us to look at and to deal with over the coming 4 weeks, the whole span of the lunar month. I think until February 13th is when the next lunar month is. Oh wait, we're not done with the astrology this week. Then we have Uranus turns direct on the 14th, the day after the new moon. Now, I'm not going to kind of go too much into the Uranus story. Maybe we'll save that for next week. But Uranus has been in Taurus since May of 2018, kind of went back out. In November of 2018, went back in March of 2019. And if you are a Taurus, or if you're a Scorpio, Aquarius, Leo, you are the 4 signs that have been feeling this the most. But there's some part of your life that may have started some sort of radical shift over those past 2 years, or you're starting to feel that shift build up because Uranus wants authenticity. It wants us to be us and nobody else. My example is if you are a lawyer because your parents were lawyers, their parents were lawyers, their parents were lawyers, but you're not a lawyer, then you have this Uranus energy in the sky and it's saying like, what are you doing? This is not who you are. You're something completely different. You came here to live your life, nobody else's life. My big story is that when Uranus went to Taurus, I was doing empowering astrology on the side. I have a background in IT and a 20-year background in IT and graphic design. And Uranus is like, what are you doing? This is not what you came here on this planet to do. You came here to do this, meaning to do the astrology work, to connect with you all. This is my path. This is my dharma. So Uranus was like, here, I'll spare you all a long story, but Uranus was like, here, I'll make it easy for you and sort of just shake my life up to kind of get me out of my comfort zone. So there's some area of your life that is very comfortable, has been comfortable, or maybe was comfortable until 2018, 2019. And then Uranus is like, this isn't comfortable anymore. In fact, it's impeding your growth. It's keeping you stagnant. It's keeping you stuck. It's too safe. And it's not who you really are. So those 4 signs, Scorpio, Leo, Aquarius, Taurus, you began a 7-year story, yes, 7 years, of completely reinventing a key area of your life. Now you're thinking, well, Katie, I'm not one of those 4 signs. I know. So there's some part of your chart that is Taurus. It could be money, it could be career, just like when we went through the chart and we looked at the Capricorn New Moon. So this week's astrology is sort of touching on something that is a theme throughout 2021. 2 stories that have been sort of running parallel that now are coming to a head. There is this push and pull and friction between an old life and a new life, or something old and something new. And we have to resolve this tension. We have to create new systems, new networks, new pathways in order to accommodate the fact that life is pushing us into a new direction. Meanwhile, we've got one foot in the old life. And what happens when one foot's going this way and one foot's going the other way? You're going to have to make some sort of leap or jump at some point. It's obviously unsustainable to keep doing that. And that's sort of, like I said, at the heart of a lot of the astrology this year of 2021. By the way, shameless plug, I'm doing a webinar on January 23rd on the astrology of 2021. The link is in the show notes. You can sign up on my website for the webinar. It'll be like a 90-minute overview and kind of breaks down a little bit to sign by sign of what is going on in the astrology of 2021. Like I said, old versus the new. So that story is in the astrology this week. It's sort of kicking off. We're really feeling the tension between the old and the new. So how do we take care of ourselves? How do we resolve this internal divide or this external divide? How do we take care of ourselves? How do we reflect? How do we meditate? As I was asked on Facebook, well, what do you do? Every morning I sit down, I do energy work, I do, kind of go through my chakras, I do my, connections, I harmonize with certain energies, I pray, this is part of my work. So we all need something to ground us right now and to ground us and to keep us completely in ourselves, because the world is doing this right now, and it's unfortunately going to continue to do that. So if you sort of maintain this connection within yourself, and to a point about Uranus and Taurus is the body. Taurus is very somatic, meaning it's when you feel something, it's because something's off. Something's off in the system, Aquarius systems. So even if you have a stomach ache, it's not really a stomach ache. It's indicative of something that's off in the system, for example. But I think that this is important to understand that with this week, we're doing too much thinking. we're trying to do everything with our mind. And how do we start to come back into the body? How do we, I was doing some work one time, and then I was working with somebody, and somebody said, okay, well, how are you feeling? And I kept saying, I think. And he said, no, think, feel. And it was true. Like, I completely unconsciously would use the word think to talk about how I feel. Mind you, I do have a Gemini moon, but it's, how do we feel instead of think? How do we listen to our body? How do we come back into our body so we can maintain that grounding and that connection and to be exactly who we are? Remember, Uranus is in Taurus. We have to be exactly who we are. Speaking of Uranus, Jupiter squares Uranus on the 17th of January. This is like the last big aspect of this week, I promise, I guess. But Jupiter, now that it's in Aquarius, is making a square to Uranus and Taurus. So Jupiter, faith, wisdom, law, the world, how do we see the world, our awareness, these kind of deeper existential questions, philosophy. And Uranus is, kind of turning a light bulb on. So there's something that's really shaking our faith, shaking how we see things, shaking how we see ourselves, shaking how we see the world. But how do we open up to something greater? Because this year, we have the Saturn-Uranus square. We have Jupiter and Aquarius. Mind you, it'll pop out and go into Pisces for a short bit from May to July. But there's just a lot of things that are sort of coming to a head this year. And so we're seeing that in the astrology this week. So anyway, that was a lot to go through. Thank you all for listening to me and following. And I hope you, in your own time, go back and think about, well, what is your 2008 story? 2008, 2009, especially if you are an Aries or a Cancer or a Libra or a Capricorn, like those 4 signs, like 2008 onwards, like you probably see a lot of big changes. Then, like, what's your 2018, 2019 story? Uranus went to Taurus. And so then my Scorpios, my Aquariuses, my Leos, my Tauruses, like you were really kind of this energy of reinvention. So these 2 stories are really coming to a head this week. Do take care of yourself. Do stay grounded. Breathe. It's really easy to forget to breathe. Phone a friend, reach out. Anything that's, positive. Self-care. That said, again, I am doing that webinar on the astrology of 2021. You can go to the show notes. You can join me on January 23rd and learn all about the astrology this year. Another plug, maybe you remember I was doing this back, I think it was November, Cosmos, Crystals, and Cabernet. I'm doing this kind of collaborative work with a friend of mine, Maria Becker of Cetera Minerals, and Heather Rader of Spirit Horse Winery, where you're pairing astrology and crystals and wine. Unfortunately, this is only open to U.S. residents because it does require shipping wine laws and stuff. And we're going to do it on February 6th in time for Valentine's Day season and, or Love Yourself season. And we're going to work with Morganite this time. And Morganite is a beryl. It's related to emerald and aquamarine. Aquamarine is one of my favorite stones. And it's pink, but it's got very beautiful energy. So also in the show notes, check that out. I hope you can join me on February 6th or January 23rd for my webinar. We're pairing the Morganite with a Albarino, a California Albarino white wine. It's going to be a lot of fun. So again, my name is Katie Sweetman. I'm here in New York City, Brooklyn, New York. Thank you all for joining me for another look at the astrology, January 11th through 17th. Follow me on empoweringastrology.com, Facebook, Instagram, IGTV, YouTube, or you can listen to this on Spotify. And quick shout out to those that do watch the replay. I see some of my clients on the live chat, but thank you all. You can book a consultation with me. But until next week, be well, be safe, take care.